sir. It's another one of them days. Another one of them Saturdays. Saturday night to be exact. We've been coming. We missed another week. You know what I'm saying? Don't mind us. We missed another week, but don't mind us. We still here.
We can take breaks.
We about to be at 100 subscribers. So I really appreciate all the support, all the
Within it's been 3 months since we started YouTube.
So yeah, I appreciate everything that has been, you know what I'm saying, arised. But this first video,
What?
It's called Babysitter Horror Stories Animated by Horror Black Candy. I think they just hit 500 subscribers. We was there, you know what I'm saying, since the beginning. So I want to congratulate them. Yes sir. Congratulate them people right there.
I dropped out of school. It wasn't easy to find work. Nobody seemed to want to hire a girl with no qualifications. I was tired of applying for jobs advertised in newspapers and on the...
I just say, I love it. Love it. I don't know if y'all know back then, but the graphics weren't always this good. Improvement, my guy. Keep it up.
Receiving any replies. One day I spotted an ad for a job that was not so tempting, but I really needed the money. The ad said they were looking for a live-in babysitter to take care of 3 young children. It said no qualifications were necessary. They just required someone young, responsible, and pretty. I called the number, and the phone was answered by a woman with a sweet and friendly...
Why does it matter if I'm pretty?
If it has certain details on the paper, then
But why does it red flag? I mean, you just gotta know this stuff.
Right.
You're supposed to go ahead, go about your days. There's more jobs than that right there.
Young and pretty.
Voice.
There's more
when
jobs.
I told her I was calling about the babysitting job, she hired me on the spot.
Yeah, bro.
She didn't even want to meet me in person first, but she said she needed me to start immediately. I was delighted. The next morning, I drove over to the house to meet the family. As soon as I got there, I saw that the house was beautiful both inside and out. You could tell that the family was wealthy. The woman and her husband greeted me with broad smiles on their faces and introduced me to their children. There were 2 boys and a girl. Sebastian was 6 years old, Damien was 5, and Lenka was 4. The kids seemed to be nice, happy, and friendly. They were always polite, never fought with each other, and never made a mess. All they did was play alone or read a book. The parents announced that they were going out to dinner and wouldn't be home until late that night. They told me the children had already been fed, so all I had to do was get them ready for bed. The mother gave me a phone number and told me to call her if there was an emergency. The father told me to make myself at home, and if I was hungry, he said I could take whatever I wanted from the refrigerator. After their parents left, the children sat down on the sofa to watch TV.
Is that Rick and Morty I see? Oh, Horror Black Candy. I don't know what y'all got going on.
Bro, I didn't even see Rick and Morty.
That won't. I said the wrong thing, bro. That's Mordecai and Rigby from the regular show.
Okay.
Tighten the fuck up.
I'm just listening to the story because it's...
Yeah, I need to tighten.
They were very quiet and barely said a word. During a commercial, I was feeling a bit hungry, so I went into the kitchen to make myself a snack. As I was rummaging around in the refrigerator, I couldn't help but notice 2 large jars that were stuffed in the back of the fridge. Both of them were wrapped in plain brown paper and had a rubber band sealing the rim. I wondered what on earth could be in them.
That made no text.
My curiosity got the better of me, so I took out one of the jars and peeled back the brown wrapper to take a little peek. It was full of long strips of fatty meat floating in a murky red liquid. I couldn't tell what kind of meat it was, but it didn't look like pork or beef. Just as I was about to put the jar back where I found it, I heard a noise behind me. It startled me so much, I banged my head on the shelf above me. When I turned around, Sebastian was standing in the doorway staring at me. "Put that back," he said. "That's
The whole time from the niggas.
You go to the refrigerator and
What's-
touch stuff. She didn't even. Why would she touch it?
you." The look on his eyes and the tone of his voice sent chills down my spine. "Sorry," I muttered. "I was just looking for something to eat." Sebastian didn't reply. He just stood there, staring at me. I placed the jar back in the refrigerator and shut the door. Sebastian turned around and went back to the living room. I lost my appetite, so I went and joined the children in the living room and watched cartoons with them. I was trying to not let my imagination get the better of me when the cartoons finished and the news came on. There was a story about a teenage girl who had gone missing. The police found her decomposing head in a dumpster. They said they had no idea what had happened to the rest of her. I was
You
afraid
showed
the
that?
grisly news story would upset the children,
Yo, that
so I
news-
changed the
that
channel and
sounds
told
tough.
them it was time for bed.
That
The
news
kids
sound
didn't
tough
complain.
Right there.
They just
actually
walked up the
showed
stairs
that,
in
like,
single file and went to their bedroom. I put them in their pajamas and got them ready for bed. Then I tucked them in, kissed them all good night, and switched out the lights.
Yeah, you a little too comfortable.
You just got there yesterday.
Putting your lips on me. I ain't even gonna be surprised if they, you know what I'm saying, jumped your
Monkey
ass.
pops.
I ain't even gonna be surprised if they jump your ass, bro. Don't put your lips on me off the rip. Who are you? Come
Yeah,
on
she
now.
big.
I came back
You a
down.
little too comfortable.
I
dog.
was bored and had absolutely nothing to do, so I decided to watch a movie. I looked through the family's DVD collection, but all they had were cartoons and Disney movies.
Copyright?
I wasn't in the mood for any more kids' stuff. On the bottom shelf, I spotted some old VHS tapes. One of them had a strange title. It was M Girls. This seemed rather curious, so I decided to take a look at it. I put the videotape in the VCR and pressed play, then sat down on the sofa.
Ain't meant for you.
Like, she just didn't learn it yet.
Yeah, like you rummaging through these people's house. Bro,
And made myself comfortable while the video started. The first thing I noticed was that it was a home video. The family must have recorded it themselves. The parents and children were all laughing and looking like they were having fun. I was about to turn it off when I happened to notice someone else in the video.
The girl.
It was a girl who looked like she was in her late teens. It seemed like she was the previous babysitter. She looked very familiar. It seemed like I recognized her from somewhere. Perhaps she went to my school? Then it finally hit me. Oh my freaking God! It was the missing girl from the news reports. My hands were shaking. My whole body was trembling. I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible.
Okay, go.
I jumped out of my seat, ejected the video, and put it back in its case. Then I remembered the jars in the refrigerator. I had to see what was in those jars.
just go.
With a shudder, I went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Maybe I'm just overreacting, I thought.
She about to be dead.
I reached and took out the second jar,
She about to be dead.
peeled back the brown paper wrapper. I could see long pale hunks of meat and strips of fat floating in the red liquid. Some of the meat looked like it had skin on it. Human skin.
They
I could
eat
also see
humans.
what looked like strands of hair.
They eat
Long
them.
hair. Human hair. I was so scared. I felt like I was about to pee my pants.
Right.
I ripped off the rubber band that was sealing the jars and peered
You
inside.
just keep on opening stuff.
There was an eyeball staring back at me. Horrified, I dropped the jar and it smashed on the kitchen floor. I ran to the living room, put on my jacket, grabbed the videotape and stuffed it into my pocket. When I came out of the hallway, Sebastian was standing at the foot of the stairs. "Where are you going?" he asked. I just remembered, I stammered. "I forgot something. I have to go home and get it. I'll be back in a few minutes." Damien and Lenka came running down the stairs. "You can't go," screeched Damien. "You can't leave us on our own."
You don't kick the
"I'm
kid.
calling our parents," shouted Lenka as she picked up the phone and began dialing numbers. Sebastian grabbed hold of my leg and wouldn't let go. "You have to stay," he squealed. "We're hungry." His grip was extremely tight, but I managed to shake him off and ran out the front door. As I dashed to my car,
Hurry
I
up.
saw the parents pulling into the driveway.
You ain't
I didn't stop
fast
for a
enough.
moment.
Exactly.
I just jumped into my car and locked all the doors.
You gotta drive.
The children were on the doorstep screaming and crying. The mother and father got out of their car and they came running over. There was an angry look on their faces. "What's wrong?" they shouted. "Where are you going? Come back here." I didn't answer. I just turned the key in the ignition and revved the engine. They started banging on the windows. I floored the accelerator and tore out of there like a bat out of hell and never looked back. I didn't stop until I came to the police station. I told the police officers everything I knew and handed over the videotape as evidence. The police immediately dispatched 2 patrol cars. By the time they arrived at the house, the parents and children were gone. They just took their car and disappeared. The police searched the house and found the jars in the refrigerator. They also found human flesh and bones in the basement. They did tests and confirmed that these were the remains of the missing girl. They never managed to track down the parents of the children. They're still out there somewhere. Probably living under a different name. Probably still on the hunt for new victims. If you want my advice, be careful who you are babysitting for.
You should give us a lesson at the end.
So she looked up. That's what it looked like. She looked up and used her common sense and got up out of there.
Who named that daughter Lincoln?
Yeah, it couldn't have been me. I wouldn't even call it that right there. I would have just let that be that. But
You told us you don't babysit nobody. Right. Girl.
next video.
Round 2.
Alright, so this next horror story, animated horror story, is by Wansi Entertainment. It's called A Dancing Woman. Let's get right into it.
What time is it?
22.
I woke up, startled by the sudden sound of thunder. Damn, that scared the shit out of me. I took off the blanket, and at that moment, I got a
What did he
sudden...
look like?
Funny though.
Who he look like?
I have no clue.
Yeah, he look like you.
I guess.
severe headache. I fell to the floor and rolled, strongly holding my head. And the memories of the day popped up in my head. The same sound of thunder like that day. The rain was beating hard against the windows, as if it was about to break them. I woke up in the middle of the night and walked to the kitchen. At that time, I heard a faint sound, which was really weird, like someone's mouth was suddenly gagged while screaming. But I couldn't hear properly because it was soon drowned out by the sound of rain. I drank up a glass of water, and all of a sudden I saw something standing at the front door of the next house, which was visible through the window in my living room. With a flash of lightning, I found a vague silhouette of a human who was getting rained on without an umbrella. Thinking if I saw things, I tried clearly to see what it was, but I couldn't because it was too dark. After a while, lightning flashed once again, and I saw a woman and a man dancing together. I dropped a glass on my big toe and groaned with pain. When another lightning stroke again, I saw a woman dancing with somebody. She was grinning from ear to ear. However, the man dancing with her was lifelessly swung around, just like a dummy by the woman. As it was kind of creepy, I checked the door to make sure it was locked.
Smart man.
Then I turned my eyes to them again to clearly see what they were doing. At that moment, her eyes suddenly turned to me, I got startled and immediately hid myself. I was not sure whether she got aware of me or if she was just looking in this direction. When I looked back through the window after a couple of minutes, they were gone. Come on, this is not funny. Please. Muttering in a low voice, I looked around a bit nervously, then went back to my room. Next morning, it was noisy outside the house next door. There were several police officers, and I found the man next door was found dead. One of the police came to me and asked me if anything had happened to me last night. So I said, I saw a man and a woman were dancing in front of the house, and I hurt my big toe. The police showed me a picture of his dead body and asked me if he was the man I saw last night. In the picture, all of his joints were terribly broken and twisted, and the body was horribly bloated by rain. It was even hard to recognize, but it certainly looked like him. Then the police showed me another picture of a woman who really looked like the one I saw last night. She was the dead man's wife, who already died 3 years ago. As far as I know, she had a severe mental illness while she was alive. Bullshit! She already died 3 years ago. But how come? I was extremely confused. A few days later, the police came to my house again and said, last night another man living across the way died, completely soaked by rain, just like the previous case. Did you see or notice anything strange last night? I was shocked, speechless. The police continued, take care of yourself on a rainy day, especially when it's with thunder and lightning. Nobody can ensure your safety. I gulped with fear. It was so loud the police might hear it. Since then, there have been a number of witnesses telling that they're seeing the dancing woman night after night. Even there was a rumor that never make eye contact with the dancing woman at night, because several more men went missing in the village after that day. The police conducted a large-scale investigation, but they got nowhere. And one day, on a rainy night, I heard someone knocking at my door. I walked up to the door and looked outside through the window. I saw a woman in a white dress standing in front of my door, completely soaked with rain. I felt my heart suddenly thumped in the chest, because she was dancing alone, holding a knife. I shouted, "Fuck off! I don't like dancing!" Frightened, I missed my footing while shrinking back from her and fell backward, and I was still seeing her silhouette dancing alone through the window. "I'll call the police!" I shouted again. Then the silhouette disappeared, and fortunately, nothing happened that night. And I moved out from that house.
Right.
6 years have passed since then. I haven't heard any news about that village and the woman anymore. But even now, I completely lock all the doors and windows of my house when it rains and lightning strikes. Sometimes it feels like I can hear her laughing from the yard, or I see her shadow dancing frantically. Well, all this might be just hallucinations. But nevertheless, I didn't look out through the window to identify that. Until today, I still have no idea who she was. Just one thing I can't ever forget is her dancing. Looking back on it now, maybe that was not dancing, but stabbing the man frantically with a knife.
Decent. That was decent right there.
Smart. He's smart, man.
Bossy Entertainment.
Yeah, I liked that one. The first one was
Again
smart.
with it. He be dropping them drinks like every day, almost every day. Next video.
Final round.
Alright, so this next video is by Llama Arts.
Llama, llama, llama.
This is a throwback.
Llama,
Yeah, that Llama joint that you was tripping over last time. It's a throwback by Llama Arts. It's
I still like
called
figure out what it was.
A Bus Stop Horror Story Animated. Yeah, we gonna figure out what that was for you.
This happened when I was 17 years old. I would go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and ride the bus home. It was a Sunday and I had just missed my bus, so I had to wait longer for another one. I would have called my parents, but they were out for the evening, and taxis charged more, so I decided to sit and wait in the bus shelter. It was a cold night and snow had just started peppering the ground. My bus was taking longer than usual, so I got my phone out and listened to some music. Almost an hour had passed. It was freezing and I hadn't seen anyone at all. That was until I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. It was a creepy guy dressed in thick layers of clothing, walking slowly towards me. I knew staring at him would draw more attention, so I just focused on my...
Just look at the difference. This is the first person I started watching when I started watching horror stories. But just look at the difference of everybody on YouTube and Mama Harps. I ain't even get it.
He sat down at the other end of the shelter and just stared at me. There was something off about him. He seemed like he was either drunk or on drugs. He then asked,
What does the boss do?
I took out my earphones and said, I think it's delayed, because of the snow. He stared at me for a while, then started mumbling to himself. He was really starting to creep me out, so I pretended to be on my phone. After a couple of minutes, I took another look. He moved closer to me. I looked away for a second, then heard the sound of him sliding even closer. I turned to him and said, You okay there? He stared at me with glossy eyes, lifted his arm and leaned towards me. Immediately, I grabbed my bag and ran as he fell to the ground. I ran down the road, trying my hardest not to look back. I kept going until I got to the next bus stop. I turned around to check to see if he was there. He was gone, so I went to sit down. Feeling relieved, I rested my head on the back of the glass and waited for the bus.
You keep on waiting for the bus.
I jolted and turned around to see the same guy staring at me through the glass.
Work out or something. 'Cause ain't no way I'm about to just be going to sleep outside. It's cold as hell.
Waiting on the bus.
Ain't no way, bro. That must have been. You must have did 50.
What the hell is wrong with you? Then he started walking around the shelter towards me. I'm warning you, stay back! I yelled in panic as I was backing up. I wanted to run, but I left my bag in the shelter and I couldn't leave without it. Suddenly, the man leaped at me and I quickly moved out of the way. He fell to the ground face first. I froze in shock, then noticed the blood coming from his face. I tried to get a response out of him, but nothing worked. I called the police and paramedics and they arrived shortly after. I told them what had happened and they told me that the guy was on prescription drugs. They found a photo in his wallet of him and his son. The boy looked just like me, so we assumed he thought I was him. I later learned that he had lost his son in a custody battle and went off the rails. He was taken away for treatment. That was the last I saw of him. I got my driver's license shortly after, and have never been on a bus since.
Ride a bus either.
Yeah, that nigga be alright. You know what I'm saying? He just need to get some visitation rights. You know what I'm saying? Work on that. And then he probably, you know what I'm
But you
saying?
didn't hear him though. He went off the rails.
But why?
When you go off the rails, that's it. It's hard to get back.
I mean, he got something to do here. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't think that. So.
But yeah, that was a good spooky Saturday.
Good spooky Saturday.
Was it scary?
No,
It was
it was dumb.
yeah.
Especially the first one.
Let's get it.
Yeah, I tried to plan it, but you couldn't see it. I wanna be it, I'm trying to have it tonight.